Ben Beacon with Locked On Wolves here. The Minnesota Timberwolves have defied the odds and cashed in on just a 27.6% chance at keeping their selection, which means it lands in the top 3 in this year's draft. There's, of course, a 72.4% chance that the pick conveys to the Golden State Warriors, meaning it lands outside the top 3 as the final piece of the D'Angelo Russell and Andrew Wiggins trade from February of last year. In this case, though, it's not only top 3, but it's the 9% chance that came through of the pick being number 1 overall. There's no suspense here. The Timberwolves would select Cade Cunningham out of Oklahoma State. He is, bar none, the best prospect in this draft. He's in a tier by himself. Put him in the same category as Karl Anthony Towns a few years ago, or more recently Zion Williamson. There's no other prospect that can touch Cade Cunningham in this year's draft. And yes, there's only one ball to go around. Yes, he's ball dominant. So is Anthony Edwards. So is Karl Anthony Towns. So is D'Angelo Russell. Don't overthink this. The Wolves would figure this out later. Slot him in at the 3 next to Anthony Edwards. You still start Russell, Karl Anthony Towns, Jaden McDaniels, and Malik Beasley becomes a trade chip. He's only making about $15 million. He was fantastic last year before he was suspended and had the injury. They likely trade Malik Beasley, and now all of a sudden you've got a starting 5 where all 5 guys are under 26. You've got 2 recent All-Stars in D'Lo and Cat. You've got 2 recent number 1 overall picks and quite possibly Rookie of the Years in Anthony Edwards and Cade Cunningham. Don't overthink this. Add another fantastic player with an extremely high ceiling, and you've got one of the best starting 5s, best young starting 5s, I should say, in the league. The only other player that I would consider here would be Evan Mobley. I think if the Wolves land at 2, there's a real conversation to be had for adding Mobley out of USC to the roster. But at number 1, it's got to be Cade Cunningham. Excited to see what happens next, if that were to happen, with Cunningham next to Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, Jaden McDaniels, and D'Angelo Russell. Ben Beacon with Locked On Wolves. Let's head over to pick number 2.
I am Rylan Stiles, host of the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. And we have another mock draft for you. The Thunder are on the clock at pick number 2. And this lottery outcome for Oklahoma City is pretty nice, getting selections 2 and 5. Right now, we're talking about pick 2. And this pick might surprise you. Right now, you're probably thinking, why am I still yammering? We're going to pick Evan Mobley. You'd be wrong. Unlike most, on my big board, number 2 is Jalen Green, and that's where we're going with this selection. Jalen Green from G League Ignite. This is a guy that fits perfectly next to SGA, the perfect running mate to balance out SGA. SGA plays kind of slow and methodical, but in an efficient way. Jalen Green plays 100 miles per hour and at an efficient clip as well. And Jalen Green will lead this league in scoring multiple times throughout his NBA career, and that scoring output is needed in Oklahoma City. So whenever you can add a guy like Jalen Green, who has all the tools and the mental makeup, to a guy like SGA, Poku, Lou Dort, Taylor Maldon, and Mark Dagnott, this is the perfect plan, especially when you get to follow it up at pick number 5 later on in this draft. So right now, things are perfect. Tune into Locked On Thunder for a full breakdown and a full player profile of Jalen Green, already up right now at Locked On Thunder.
I'm Walker Mail of the Locked On Hornets podcast, and with the 3rd overall pick in the Locked On NBA mock draft, the Charlotte Hornets select Evan Mobley, big man out of USC. It's realistically the best case scenario for the Charlotte Hornets come NBA lottery or NBA draft night. They have an 8.5% shot of getting a top 4 pick in reality, and only just over a 1% shot of getting the number 1 overall pick. And even if they get in the top 4, then the Hornets would have to have Evan Mobley maybe even fall to them to 3 or 4, as he is widely considered the 2nd best prospect in this draft class. He'd go number 1 overall in any draft that did not have Cade Cunningham in it. Evan Mobley is extremely mobile, such a fluid athlete for being 7 feet, 7'4" wingspan. It would provide the rim protector that James Borrego has desperately wanted, but also Evan Mobley has the shot mechanics to be a successful threat from outside. He can put the ball on the deck offensively too, but even defensively, not only is he a rim protector, but he can slide his feet, and he's athletic enough to move with even the best guards on the perimeter and stay in front of them. Excellent decision maker defensively, good anticipatory defense, can slide and even recover when he doesn't anticipate a play well enough. He would fix so many problems for the Charlotte Hornets team, and we'd be thrilled to have him here in the Queen City. Tell us what you think. I'm on Twitter at Walker Mail. Nada, my co-host, is on Twitter at Nada the Scribe, and our show handle is on Twitter at Locked On Hornets. Can't wait to catch you next time in a Locked On Hornets episode.
What's the deal, everybody? Kuka Hill here with the Locked On Pistons podcast, and with the 4th pick of the Locked On Network's NBA mock draft, the Detroit Pistons select Jalen Suggs, the 20-year-old 6'4" guard from Gonzaga. With the actual NBA lottery just 5 days away, if the Pistons ended up at the 4th slot, it wouldn't be the end of the world. Obviously, they probably would like to stay in the top 3, but if they ended up with number 4, I think they would be decently happy with Jalen Suggs there. I think the argument would be either Kuminga or Suggs there. And I know that Troy Weaver said he likes Book Knight as well, so maybe they would trade back for Book Knight or maybe even take him right here. Who knows with Troy Weaver. But I think 4th overall, obviously, is not the worst case scenario, not the best either, but I think they would be decently happy with Suggs. If you consider the Pistons' last 3 first-round picks all part of the legit core of Killian Hayes, Sadiq Bey, and Isaiah Stewart, and then also you add in Jeremy Grant, shooting guard is a position that, if you believe in that, that is the position of need that they should be. If you want to believe in drafting for need, it would be the shooting guard position, which is why I believe a lot of Pistons fans want Jalen Green. But also Suggs would slide in right there next to Killian Hayes as well, so I don't think it would be a bad fit either. So 4th overall pick, Jalen Suggs from Gonzaga. Not the worst thing to happen to the Pistons. It could be a lot worse, and I think we would be okay with that.
The Oklahoma City Thunder are back on the clock at pick number 5. That's right. They take away Houston's pick. They kick Jackson Gatlin out of this mock draft. We're back on the clock. I'm Rylan Stiles yet again with the Locked On Thunder podcast. And at pick number 2, we surprised the NBA draft world and took Jalen Green ahead of Evan Mobley and ahead of Jalen Suggs. At pick number 5, you guessed it, we're going to take his running mate, his teammate at the G League Ignite. We're going to take Jonathan Kuminga. Jonathan Kuminga is one of the most raw prospects in this draft, but he has elite defensive potential. I think that his shot is not scary at all. It's not a red flag at all. I think the mechanics are there and the process is there. He's comfortable shooting. He's confident shooting. He just has to get the results to fall, and eventually, with a larger sample size, they will. And so if you can add even an average to above average shooter in Jonathan Kuminga and add that to his game with his elite defense, his elite ability to get to the rim, given his frame, given his size, you've got a heck of a ball player right there. Now, it's going to take some time, but the Thunder are no strangers to projects and no strangers to drafting raw talent and drafting unorthodoxly. I mean, there was a lot of questions around drafting Russell Westbrook back in the day. How'd that work out? So hopefully Jalen Green will have that same fate, and Jonathan Kuminga will as well. So picks 2 and 5 are in the books, and the Thunder get the G League Ignite teammates to walk away and add to this young core with SGA, Teo Maledon, Lou Dort, and a treasure trove of draft picks in the future still to come. So the Thunder are locked and loaded, and they're going to be back to being a competitive team sooner rather than later. Tune into Locked On Thunder for a full breakdown of Jonathan Kuminga. A full NBA draft profile is already up right now on Locked On Thunder.
This is Philip Rossman-Wright, the host of Locked On Magic, here with my pick in the 3rd go-round here in the Locked On NBA mock draft. Look, the Orlando Magic landing with the 6th pick would be considered a complete disaster for this team. The Orlando Magic trading Nikola Vucevic, Aaron Gordon, Evan Fournier at the trade deadline in hopes of landing in the top 5 and getting one of the prized prospects in this draft. This is largely considered a 5-man draft with 5 players with clear star potential. The Magic want one of those guys. Obviously, though, it's a lottery. You can't control where you land, and that's the risk that you take. All you can control is the player that you take with the spot that you're handed. And the Magic have a great opportunity still to get a talented player and take the best player available on the board. For me, that is Florida State's Scotty Barnes. Florida State has a great reputation of putting great players in the NBA, players who understand their roles, who defend well, and who kind of gain their reputation through the league, whether it's Terrence Mann, whether it's Patrick Williams last year, the 4th overall pick, whether it's Jonathan Isaac on the Orlando Magic. These are guys that play the right way and play fundamentally sound. The reason why I go with Scotty Barnes, though, is he provides a unique skill. He may not be a superstar caliber player, but this is a guy who's a 6'8" point guard, which is something that is very, very rare and hard to find. He can play on the ball, he can make plays, and he can hit a little bit from the outside, although I still think he needs to improve there. With this pick, I think you take the best guy on the board, regardless of positional need, and to me, that is Scotty Barnes.
Hey everyone, Evan Damerl here, co-host of Locked On Cavs with the 7th overall pick in the 2021 Locked On NBA mock draft. With the 7th pick, and after a bit of a communication breakdown between my co-host Chris Manning and myself, we decided to go once again with Duke's Jalen Johnson. The playmaking intrigue of Johnson is just too much for the Cavs to really pass up because it's one of the biggest needs, other than wing depth, that Johnson covers for the Cavs heading into this offseason. This is an interesting time for the Cavs, and why not swing for the fences and take the player outside of the top 5 with the highest upside? Hear about this and more on Locked On Cavs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hey, Sean Woodley here from Locked On Raptors to make the 8th overall pick in this week's Locked On NBA mock lottery draft. And with this pick, the hypothetical Raptors are selecting Texas big man Kai Jones, who is very much a project. He has a lot of interesting tools. He's a guy who has shown some semblance of playmaking as a big man on the offensive end of the floor. Very bouncy, great role threat, but there's a lot to work on there. He only picked up the game about 5 years ago at age 15. There's still a lot to be mined there in terms of potential. And this is what the Raptors should be doing with this pick. If they are going to be 7th or 8th in the lottery after lottery night and the results are in, they got to be going upside here. They don't fancy themselves a team that's going to be back in the lottery anytime soon. They figure they're going to get back to normal next year, have a real season playing in front of their home fans and all of that stuff. And so this is their opportunity to grab some high-level talent. And it might not work out. Maybe Kai Jones doesn't figure things out. Maybe he remains raw for the rest of time, but he's worth the gamble that he becomes a high-leverage playmaking big. I mean, that is kind of the dream at this point. The Raptors already have Pascal Siakam. We've seen how effective a playmaking big man can be. You add Kai Jones to a front court with Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby going forward, and that's pretty exciting. So the Raptors take Kai Jones here, 8th overall in the Locked On NBA mock lottery draft.
This is Philip Rossman-Reich, the host of Locked On Magic, back again with another pick. If the Magic aren't going to be in the top 5, at least they get 2 top 10 picks. We'll pick 9th here. With the Magic picking 6th and 9th, I'm sure they will do everything they can to move into the top 5. Like I said earlier when I analyzed the 6th pick, the Magic need to get one of these top 5 picks and get one of these star players. But I still think Orlando can get good players, and I think if they come away with this draft, it won't be an A-plus draft, or won't be the draft that they imagined, but it'll still be a good draft. With the 9th pick, I go with someone that's a little more skill-based, and especially if the Magic don't get that big player, this is a guy that can give you a little bit of a swing with a little bit of a cushion too. I take Moses Moody from Arkansas. I'm a big fan of Moses Moody. I think that I agree with everyone who says that he can be a 3-and-D type player, a guy who can hit from the outside, can score a little bit off the dribble and defend. He's got a plus wingspan, and I think at Arkansas he was simply cast as the guy that was on the ball a lot. I think that his percentages will go up the more he is off the ball, but the fact that he can play on the ball is really attractive to me, especially with the way this draft shook out. With the Magic not able to get one of those key players at the top of the draft, they get a guy who can create a little bit for himself and create a little bit off the dribble, which is something the Magic desperately need. So with the 9th pick, the Orlando Magic take Moses Moody.
This is Matt George, host of the Locked On Kings podcast, here to make my selection for the 3rd Locked On NBA mock draft. And once again, the Kings are selecting at number 10, moving down a spot. Can the Kings just stay at 9? Let's not even worry about moving into the top 4. How about just stay at 9 for one of these mock drafts, please? Make it happen on the next one. For this pick, we wanted to get Moses Moody again like we did in the last draft, but our nemesis is now the Orlando Magic, who are picking in 9th, took him away from us. But we decided to take Franz Wagner out of Michigan, and this pick has some question marks to it. There's upside. There's also a potentially low floor. There's concerns with his shot, concerns on the offensive end. But one of his primary strengths is defense and his defensive versatility, as well as his offensive versatility, mainly a 3, can play 2 in very tall lineups, but the Kings like to play small, so he has the opportunity to guard down at the 4 spot as well. Franz Wagner does have the potential to grow into a solid shooter. I've seen some comparisons online to him being a Nemanja Bjelica type player, who of course a former Sacramento King, and when he had his fit here in Sacramento, Bjelica, he was an important piece for this Kings team, seemed to fit in very well. So Wagner could turn into a better defensive version of Bjelica, maybe not as good of a shooter, but a better all-around game. That's certainly a win for Sacramento. So with the 10th pick, the Kings are taking Franz Wagner out of Michigan.
Hey everyone, Jake Madison here, host of the Locked On Pelicans podcast and Locked On NBA's on Wednesday, here to make the selection for the New Orleans Pelicans in our mock draft. And with the 11th selection, the Pelicans take Corey Kispert out of Gonzaga, wing player. Pelicans need to, put more shooting on the court next to Zion Williamson next season. And Kispert is the best shooter in the draft at 44% from 3 last season. He can shoot from spot-up situations or on the move, and he's athletic enough to attack the basket when teams close out on him. He's going to step right into the Pelicans and have a strong understanding of what his role will look like. At Gonzaga, he was never really the first option, and he still managed to score and play his role offensively pretty efficiently. I'm not thrilled, though, about drafting a 22-year-old in the lottery, and his ceiling may not be the highest because he doesn't really create for others, but he's just such a natural fit next to Zion and Brandon Ingram offensively. He's a tough, smart defender, and he's going to help the Pelicans win right away. And right now, that's maybe the most important thing. So, with 11, the Pelicans select Corey Kispert out of Gonzaga.
This is Jeff Garcia with Locked On Spurs, here to give you the reason why Locked On Spurs pick Alperen Sengun, the Locked On NBA mock draft. It kind of was a no-brainer for me. In the Spurs, desperately need help in the big man department. And that's not a knock on Jakob Poeltl. He's doing, bang up job, one of the better defensive centers, but his limitations on the offensive end really hurt San Antonio, as well as his mobility, lack of athleticism. That's where Sengun comes in. I think it just makes sense for the Spurs to shore up their big man depth. After Poeltl, it's really Drew Eubanks and an untested, unproven Lukas Samanic. So yeah, the Spurs definitely need help there. Look, he's 6'9". He had a breakout season with the Turkish league last year. He's international, and all the Spurs do love their international prospects. And he's wowing a lot of scouts right now as the NBA draft inches closer. He's quick, he's swift, he's fast, he can finish at the rim, he plays defense, he tears down the rim. Must have done something wrong to him, because he every time, at least in international play, he wants to rip the rim off the backboard. I think he's exactly what the Spurs need right now. I think just his shot is really just the biggest question mark, but I think that will develop in the NBA stage. That is why the Locked On Spurs selected Alperen Sengun out of Turkey.
With the 13th pick in the draft, the Pacers, on behalf of Locked On Pacers, select Tennessee guard wing Keon Johnson. Keon Johnson, not quite the shooter that NBA teams want on the wing, but he is good at a lot of other stuff. He's really fast. He gets some crazy acceleration and burst. He can handle the ball pretty well, gets to the rim extremely well, as evidenced by his free throw rate. He's a great statistical profile for a prospect, especially one on the wing. Over 40% free throw rate in his lone season at Tennessee. Good steal percentage, good block percentage. So he projects well as a team defender, is a good on-ball defender, nice nose for the ball kind of guy. And again, really quick, has that burst. The shooting isn't quite there, but really decent finisher as well. So he's got a lot of good skills that are going to translate well to the NBA. And at his size, he can probably end up playing at the 2 or the 3 or even the 1 if his ball handling really translates in the NBA. So good positional versatility, some nice skills. Pacers very happy to get Keon Johnson with the 13th pick in the 3rd Locked On NBA, Locked On Mock Draft.
Wes Goldberg here with Locked On Warriors, making the selection at number 14. And in previous mock drafts, I've taken Davion Mitchell and Franz Wagner. And I've heard the complaints of the vocal Twitter minority. You don't want those players. And despite Davion Mitchell still being on the board and the best prospect available right now here at number 14, I will change my pick just for the sake of change, and I will take Josh Giddey, the international high-rising prospect du jour, the prospect of the week right now, a 6'8 forward, point forward, who is maybe the best passer in this draft. Next level feel for the game, things that you like for sure. Can he shoot? Not really. Can he defend? No. But who needs shooting and defense in today's NBA, according to Twitter? All you need is great passing and some height and just some general pizzazz around your game. And look, maybe there's a part of the Warriors contingent that regrets not taking LaMelo Ball at number 2 in last year's draft. And Josh Giddey, for all of the things about him, has a little bit of LaMelo Ball to his game. Again, not proven the way that LaMelo Ball was overseas, but he's young, he's raw, he's a great passer, can make plays out of the pick and roll, great vision, great height to go along with that vision. And if the Warriors want to add a level of playmaking, they could do that with Josh Giddey. He's raw, yes, but if you're looking for some high upside there, that could be a place the Warriors go here at number 14 if Josh Giddey is available.